Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to you as well for folks who just might be overseas. Really looking forward to diving into this training with you today. What we're going to be talking about is staying in integrity with the commitments that you make. I'm just going to actually check a couple things here because I didn't check if my audio is actually working at this point. It looks like it is, so that's great. And then I'm just going to make sure that this feed is public. So just bear with me here for a second. Okay, perfect. So we'll get that there. And we're good to go. Oh, I'm just looking at Facebook here. I don't know. They always add new features to these things that make it interesting. That's for sure. So let me recollect myself. So today I'm going to be talking about staying in integrity with the commitments that you make. This is such an important topic and one that comes up in my work all the time uh, with myself and with clients. And so I figured it'd be a great topic to explore today. It was a request of one of my clients to actually record a video on this as well. So I was like, hey, why not? I'll just bring it out into the world for everybody. So this is this is a cool area because, well, of course, it's a cool area for myself because oftentimes I get a lot of praise from people, in my world, other coaches who are like, wow, you were a very committed individual. You seem to be able to like just stay in the momentum of things that you were creating. And yeah, there's definitely some truth to that. Over the years, I've built systems and ways of being that, allow me to show up um, with a high level of integrity in my commitments. And yet the reality of it is that there's always room for growth in this area. And so hopefully you'll get to take some of my energy that I bring in terms of this topic and bring it into your own life and also understand that like this is always a place of development. The one thing I will say is that if you are finding for yourself in life that like you fall through on commitments. Maybe at times your integrity doesn't feel as strong. Like you're kind of like um, you get momentum with your integrity, and then it drops, or even like you just certain things show up, right? Like you find that you can't stay the course when it comes to making these some of these commitments in your life. Please feel free to reach out. I'm going to provide a link in the comments about the private coaching program that I offer. But I'm also open to having conversations around this because I know, for one, that this is sort of a wide-reaching topic. As I'll start to dive into, you'll see that like commitment starts from the smallest thing to some of the biggest things in our lives. And so, what we really want to do is start to get an integrity in all of these areas. So, this is a place that I absolutely support people around and really hold people to when they come into this work with me because it's so important to be able to stay in integrity with the things that we're doing to keep our word and also to be able to like feel the impact of following through on our commitments, whatever that looks like. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to provide a link in the comments afterwards. And actually, what I'll do is I'll do that now. Let me just do that now. I'll just put it on my main Facebook thread for now. So if you're looking for that link, please feel free to find it there. All right. There's the link to that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out um, and I will answer that. Okay. A little bit jumbled here to start, but let's dive in. So, a couple of things that I want to share with you. Um, we're going to look at some of the definitions of integrity and commitment because think these really capture the heart of really what it is that we're looking to create in our lives. So integrity, there's two definitions that I've come across that stand out. Integrity meaning that it's the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles and moral uprightness. So allow that just to sink in. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles and a moral uprightness. Right? So pretty standard in terms of integrity. Strong moral principles and just really like being a holder of, you know, just that, a good moral life. This part is another element of integrity that I feel like in some ways gets missed. It's not talked about as much, which is the state of being whole and undivided. And how I perceive that is that, like, the ability to be in integrity makes it so that we get to be whole and complete. That when we keep to our word, when we make a commitment to somebody or something, and we follow through on that thing, that we actually stay in a place of being whole. We stay in a place of being complete, and that allows us to be in the flow of life much more. We don't have this heaviness that we're carrying. And so that's really important when it comes to integrity, and we're going to dive into that more. And then as we shift to look at the definition of commitment, this is also interesting, just what I was reading here. So, commitment being the state of quality of being dedicated to a cause or activity, right? So, really, it's just that state of quality of being where we're committed to something in our lives. We're committed to, some element of our life. But then this other part I find interesting as well, where it's talking about it's an engagement or obligation that restricts freedom of action. So if you think about that, our commitments are almost like a pathway of narrowing in. It allows us to get more focus on that thing that we're looking to create. So just allow that to sink in as you're listening to those two definitions, and just feel it, like, hey, what does this mean to me? What is being shared here? And as you're engaging in this video, please feel free to put a comment in the chat, for something that, sparks your interest, if you have questions as well. And so here's the thing, right? When we talk about the commitment side of things, what I really want you to just be present to is that commitment really starts from the smallest things all the way up to the biggest things, right? So looking at, okay, commitment means that if this is something that's important to me, I show up on time. I follow through on the things that I say that I'm going to do. Maybe it's like you follow through on doing the dishes or cleaning the yard, but you make a commitment to that thing and you follow through. That's at the small level. And then as we start to expand out into the bigger areas of life, you know, your commitments being, your commitment to your marriage, your commitment to, the business that you're creating, your commitment to your health and fitness, right? We can see that it really crosses over, a whole bunch of different areas. So, and I think that pretty much covers the examples that I was looking to really put into the space, because again, notice even in those examples where you find yourself wavering, where you find that, you know in some areas you might be stronger with your commitments versus others. For me, I'm very strong in my business commitments, my integrity with the things that I do. One of the areas that I'm weaker in is health and fitness. And so I'm present to that. I'm present to, sort of the dynamics that are at play here. And, as you'll start to hear as I'm speaking to it in this conversation to come, of really just understanding that we always have the opportunity to make a shift. We always have the opportunity to create new possibility to move into the areas where maybe we feel a bit weaker. So we've looked at the definitions. The first place I want to just bring into the conversation is around integrity. So, at the fundamental level, we are our word. And we really want to look at where can we honor our word through and through. If you notice yourself feeling like, I don't follow through on things, I'm not very confident in myself, I make commitments and I often drop these commitments. Well, there's probably just a breakdown in your word. You potentially are reliable to make some sort of a commitment and then drop it. And the thing is that this really starts to escalate as we start to look at more and more of these areas of life where we're out of integrity. If we're out of integrity in the commitments we make to ourselves, the commitments we make to others, the commitments we make in health and fitness, or the things that we say we're going to do around the house, well, then it just becomes this baggage that we're carrying around where you know it can be really hard to just to be with that, be with where we're out of integrity with our word. So really starting to look at, okay, how can I stay in alignment with the commitments that I make? How can I stay in integrity with the commitments that I make? And this is a place really worth reflecting on for yourself in your life. A couple of the things that I put down as notes for places to look are, in order for you to stay in integrity with your commitments, does that mean that potentially you have to reduce the amount of things that you're taking on? I imagine that for most of us, we live busy lives, we live full lives. And if we are stretching ourselves across so many different areas, well, it's going to be hard to stay in that integrity of our word, in the integrity of our commitments. So that's really one place to look at, is like, where can you actually start to reduce the load that you're taking on? So reduce that load. That's sort of step one. And then start to look at, do you even have visibility on the commitments that you're making? So again, from the smallest areas to the biggest areas, are you actually present to the things that you're taking on, right? Are you present to, the commitments that you're making on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis? Are you present to the commitments that you're making in terms of your goals, your health and fitness goals, your, financial goals, whatever that is? Without that presence, it's going to be really hard to understand, like, where are you? What, just that. I'm gonna give myself a minute just to recollect myself here. So I really want to drive that point home, right? The way to continue to struggle with integrity in our commitments and lose that momentum is to live such a busy life that we can't even put focus on this, which then contributes to that sort of scattered feeling. We feel like we're running from thing to thing, and we never actually get to stay in the integrity of what we're committing to. So the two pieces here, well, really the three pieces here: fundamental level, that staying with the things that we commit to, like really honoring our word, from the smallest things to the biggest things, and then looking at, like, how much are you taking on? Do you have visibility to the commitments that you're making? So now we actually want to shift, because what often happens for people is that they utilize results as the gate. I'm going to sort of sit with this for a minute. They Results are sort of the primary driver of our commitments. And so what it ends up happening is that that becomes the only measure of success when we're moving through life, is like, okay, I said that I was going to go to the gym and, let's say, lose 10 pounds, right? I made a commitment, and that timeline is sort of like my primary focus, the by when that I'm going to actually complete this thing. One of the things to start to get into alignment with is really getting clear on the experience of life that you want to create. And again, so, it's beautiful, because what we can start to do is look at, like, okay, if I'm wanting to create the experience of integrity, well, what does that look like for me? How do I show up in the world? Right? Does that, like, what do I gain from being on time? From, if I drop a commitment to somebody else, that I stop and reflect on what that commitment was, and then, be in conversation with that person to bring myself back in integrity. So again, just starting to think about, like, the experience that you want to create for the commitments that you're making. Maybe it's a commitment to integrity. Maybe it's a commitment to your business. Maybe it's a commitment to your marriage. But where we're really wanting to get connected to is that experience. Because when we are connected to the experience that we want to create, the qualities of how we want to live start to come out. Okay, I want to be committed to my marriage. Well, what are the qualities of being that I bring to my marriage, right? That could be, I am committed to love. I'm committed to bringing joy. I'm committed to bringing intention. So using that as the foundation of where we're wanting to show up in the world, how we're wanting to show up from this place. So then the other aspect of that is then we start to use the time or the results as the gauge, as sort of a secondary gauge of what we're looking to create. Hey, Michelle. Good morning. Why am I dropping dope bombs so early? Well, this is the time for me this morning. I'm actually going to be going to jujitsu class here in like 20 minutes. So this was the time that I was able to jump on and do this. But yeah, thanks for dropping in. Thanks for checking this out. So experiences over deadlines. Really allow yourself to just allow yourself to just like embrace that, because again, most of the time we get so fixated on the deadlines that becomes the driver, right? I'm fixated on losing weight. I'm fixated on the business goal. And then that creates the experience of sort of dread or frustration, because like we're so focused on the result that we're not actually focused on the experience. So that's, one of the places just to start to get connected to. Do I even know the experience that I want to have when it comes to my commitments, when it comes to how I'm being in integrity? Then here's where we want to start making a shift. If we find ourselves falling down, if we find ourselves in that breakdown, is looking at recommitting to that thing, recommitting to our integrity, recommitting to the place that we're focused on moving forward. And here's the thing, this is the place that a lot of people get hung up, because that recommitment means a lot about us. Oh, I've dropped my fitness, commitment again. What does that mean? This is something that I always do. I've dropped my commitment to my business goal. Okay, I'm a failure. This is something that always happens. So notice that, like, in that just notice the baggage that comes with us even being able to like refocus on the commitment itself. And this is such an such a piece that's worth focusing on, because this is the place where most people drop their commitments. They can't be with the frustration, the momentary, failure, whatever you want to call it. And so it's easier to push that commitment aside versus staying the course. So I really want you to get that, because this is such a vital piece. And again, notice I've said this like 5 times in this conversation, but it starts on the small things to the big things. So if you notice yourself showing up late for meetings, okay, I need to make a recommitment here. So first of all, address the thing, right? Don't allow this thing to just like fall away. Really get aligned with this if this is important to you, right? Okay, I'm late for this meeting. First of all, I need to address it. I need to be in integrity. So talk to the person that's in front of you and say, "Hey, I'm late. You know, sorry about this." And if you see the opportunity to actually um, be in integrity with that person, voice it. Okay, I was late today, but in the future, here's my new commitment, right? Kind of an easier situation to deal with. The other place is starting to look at your own commitments, right? Okay, so you have a business goal. Let's say you create that business goal and you use time as sort of a gauge for that business goal, and you don't hit that business goal on time, or you're not on track to hit it. So there's two ways that you could approach this. One is looking at, okay, how do I need to recommit myself to actually hit that target? What needs to happen for me to stay on that pathway? Place to look. The other place to look is potentially you might not have the assets or the ability in that moment to actually hit your target. So what adjustment does need to be made? Again, not falling away from that original commitment, but potentially readjusting the time, because you're looking at that aspect of creating the experience. If the experience is the highest level, that's the thing that you're moving towards. Um, so I'll speak more to this as well because there's an example that there was a question that was asked that I'm going to bring into the space as well. And let's do that now. That'll probably help me a little bit with this. So, Tibby, thanks for asking your question. I'm gonna talk about that more now. So Tibby asked, could you also speak about losing trust in ourselves when we break our commitment and how we work with that? So allow that to sink in. Question: could you also speak to that aspect of losing trust in ourselves when we break our commitment and how we work with that? And then he gave it a couple examples. So when people avoid commitment because of their past failures around those, and then when people make a commitment, fail to meet milestones in their project, and as a result, change, reduce, lower their commitment rather than continue with the same intention. So again, you can already see we're talking about, some of these things in the conversation. So let's talk about that. First of all, can you speak to the losing trust in ourselves when we break our commitment? Okay, so I'll be honest with you. Like, this is something that shows up for me in fitness all the time, where I drop my commitments. I drop my commitments in fitness. Here's the thing is that we always have the ability to choose differently moving into the future. And the funny thing about this is that you're gonna have people, it might even be you in this moment, who will be like, "Oh, it kind of sounds like a cop out. Like you didn't do your workout, and your framing of it is like, well, as I move into the future, I can sort of choose a different path." Does that sort of negate um, like the responsibility? Well, here's the thing about it is like ultimately like it's up to you to choose, right? It's up to you to choose how you want to hold that thing. But notice that most of the time when we feel bad, we feel frustrated, it's going to be because we have some sort of past construct that's like creating that for us, right? What does society think of us if we miss a workout? What does society think of us if we don't follow through on things? We might even have evidence in other areas, like what might my boss think or my partner think of this. But notice that it's all like we're making it up as we go. And so a part of this work, a part of this trust is to almost give yourself some grace in the process, right? Okay, like I didn't follow through on my commitments, but what can be created right now so that moving into the future, I will be able to follow through on that commitment? That is a big part of that trust element, is trusting that one, you're a human being that can make mistakes, that you don't have to show up perfectly all the time. And then two, trusting that if you stay the course in terms of developing your integrity and your ability to commit, that like you will be able to bring things into alignment. You'll be able to be that creator. And a big thing, as I'll come back to, is that you've got to be willing to look at what is your life structure like right now. If you're overcommitted to things in all these areas, it's going to be really hard to follow through on some of these commitments. So, Tibby, when we speak about like people avoiding commitment because of their past failures, a big part of that is being able to let those past failures go. Because again, sort of a fundamental principle of like how most people live life is their past ends up influencing the future. I, have dropped the ball 100 times in terms of my fitness commitments, so I'm not even going to work out in the future because I can't be with that. Well, that's going to require a shift. That's going to require a shift in the mentality of we cannot allow the past to actually influence how we're showing up in the future. So one place to look. And then this other piece Tibby spoke to around when people make a commitment, fail to meet milestones in their project, and as a result, change, reduce, lower the commitment rather than continuing with the same intention. So again, this is a beautiful piece because what we're looking at here is sort of a crossroads, right? Do I stay with the commitment or do I change, reduce, lower the commitment? I'll just give you an example of my life right now. So I made a commitment to reaching a financial target in the month of November. I can tell you right now, I will not hit that target for November. So yes, absolutely. There if desired, there could be an opportunity there for me to continue to look at, well, what needs to be created for me to hit that financial goal by the end of the month? It's always a possibility, always a place that we can look. For myself, what I decided was, you know what? Given the current circumstances, I'm going to give myself a bit of a shift and look at, okay, still hitting the big revenue target that I have for the goal and giving myself a bit more time and space in the month of December to do that. And so again, notice, even for yourself, how you're listening to that. Do you have judgment? Do you have, like, do you have thoughts of like, oh, well, he's sort of letting himself off the hook? Notice that those are all like, notice where those are coming from. So because like we get to create this as we want, and I will say that, like, again, it comes back to that experience of how we want to live. If we're guided by the experience of how we want to live, it really opens these things up. It really allows us to be more in the flow of creation and really choose for ourselves, what do we want to be committed to? How can we commit to these things and continually come back to, um, really the source of how we want to be in our lives, the source of how we want to commit to these things. And ultimately, really look at this as the long-term game. This is truly a long-term focus. If we're looking to be in integrity, integrity can be something that is created in the short term, right? It can be something that you start today to just be more aligned with your word. But being in that process of commitment to the life that we want to create, this is a lifelong journey. And so looking at the ways that we can start to structure it so the experience of that journey is profound. So I went way longer than expected today, but if you have any questions on this topic, please feel free to bring it in as I've been talking about. I feel like I talked quite a bit here, but it's a fascinating topic, and just notice the baggage that you carry when it comes to things like integrity and commitment, and start to look at, where can this shift? Where can I take some small steps to be in alignment with my integrity and alignment with the commitments that I'm making? So as I mentioned earlier in the video, if this is something that you're interested in getting supported on, this is an area that I support all my clients with, and really hold them to this construct of integrity and commitment. Because when we can start to reflect on our lives from this place of keeping our word, keeping our commitments, and looking at, if there is a breakthrough in our commitments, how can we get into a space of follow through? It's game changing, because these are the things that create consistent momentum over time. And that even when we have those breakdowns, we have those moments where we feel like, we're not succeeding, we get to stay the course, and be supported in that process. So if this is something that you're interested, please feel free to put a comment below, or reach out to me via messenger on this platform here, and I'll be happy to look at where we can have a conversation to really just like, move you forward, give you some places to look, give you some next steps. And then in terms of working together more on a long-term basis, there's definitely opportunities there for that as well. And what I'll do is I'll provide that link again in the comments. So hope you enjoyed this. I'm always looking for content ideas and, just really engagement, with the folks that are connected to me. It makes this a much more fun experience, and to be able to just have these conversations. So, yeah, please feel free to let me know if there's any other topics that you'd like me to speak to. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Bye for now.